I have Graves' disease, and in this video, I'm going to share with you the 3 things that I did to cut my thyroid hormone levels by over 70% without taking methimazole. Look, if you're newly diagnosed with hyperthyroidism and or Graves' disease, I am making this video for you. Here's my story. In April, I thought I just had a mild flu, but by late April, I woke up one day and I just couldn't even go to work. I canceled everything and I lay on the sofa for weeks. So by early May, I had my answer. My T4 and T3 levels were 3 and 5 times the normal range, and my TSH was undetectable. And I also tested positive for those Graves' antibodies. I begged my family doctor to put me on methimazole, the medication that brings down thyroid hormone levels, but she said no, that it had to be prescribed from an endocrinologist, and she put in the referral with a hospital. But after that, I found out that in Ontario, the province that I'm from, the wait to see an endocrinologist can be months. So I had a diagnosis, no medication, a wait with no specific date, while barely being able to function. I was nauseous and exhausted and sat on the couch for weeks. So this video is about those 3 things that I did in that waiting period that made a big difference. Now, before I go any further, I'm not a doctor, and nothing in this video is medical advice. This is just my personal experience, and I want to share my journey with everyone who's struggling along with me. Along the way, I've had help from my family doctor, a naturopath, and I finally did see an endocrinologist. Graves' disease is absolutely life-threatening if untreated, and what worked for me might not be safe or work for you. So please don't start anything without talking to at least your family doctor and a great naturopath or functional medical provider. So after meeting with my family doctor and being crushed that she wouldn't give me any medication, I just started researching and looking into things. And in the 30 days before my follow-up appointment with her, I was able to cut my own T4 and T3 levels in half. And today, my T3 levels are 70% lower than they were at peak. But most importantly, the brain fog, fatigue, nausea, weight loss, all of it started lifting and turning around. So with that said, here's exactly what I did. The first thing was Bugleweed, tea and tincture. My family doctor had already told me that Methimazole or Tapazole wasn't hers to prescribe. So while I waited, I just needed something that I could actually start on. I also found a lot of other supplements too, and I'll list them in detail in the description, but I have to say Bugleweed was the one that really moved the needle for me. Quick explainer, Bugleweed, also known as gypsywort, is a mint family herb traditionally used for hyperthyroid symptoms. It contains compounds that naturally interfere with how Graves' antibodies stimulate the thyroid. Most naturopaths would suggest that it's used for mild cases, but while I was waiting for an endocrinologist, it's all I had. I found a local apothecary that carried Bugleweed tea, and I bought everything that they had left. The great thing is, within a couple days of steeping and drinking it, I felt something shift, and that I started feeling a little bit closer to normal than I had in weeks. For a while it was just the tea, but then later a naturopathic doctor that I hired did recommend that I add a tincture, so now I take both. Make sure you know that Bugleweed does interact with thyroid medication and isn't right for everyone, so really, this conversation needs to happen with your own doctor, naturopath, or functional medical provider. Alright, the second major thing was diet. Specifically cutting out 3 things: gluten, refined sugar, and caffeine. Gluten. There's real research connecting gluten to autoimmune conditions, including thyroid disease. Part of it's something called molecular mimicry, where a protein in gluten resembles your own tissue closely enough for it to be confused by the immune system. So people with autoimmune thyroid disease also show higher rates of gluten sensitivity, and some studies show that thyroid markers improve on a gluten-free diet. There was enough in there to make cutting out gluten an easy call. Refined sugar. Sugar drives inflammation, and inflammation is already a problem when you have an autoimmune condition. So adding a daily source of extra inflammation on top of a dysregulated immune system isn't going to be doing you any favors. The sad thing is, in the weeks leading up to my diagnosis, I was feeling sorry for myself that I had this flu that wouldn't go away. And to comfort myself, I was ordering a ton of pizza and also eating a ton of chocolate, which definitely made things even worse. Last, caffeine. This is the most obvious one. Hyperthyroidism already puts your body in overdrive and you got a racing heart, anxiety, and tremors. You're also not sleeping great. So caffeine really doesn't help you in any of these areas. It's commonly recommended to swap in lemon balm tea, which has a calming, soothing effect. To date, I still drink it daily. Honestly, I thought that diet would be hard, but it wasn't. Because when you feel as bad as we do when we're at our worst with Graves' disease, you'll do almost anything to feel better. It just didn't feel like a sacrifice. It felt obvious. This is as far as I took it at first, but later, working with a naturopath, I did actually move to a full autoimmune paleo diet, which goes a lot further and was a much bigger adjustment. But I'll get into that in a later video. The third thing, and honestly the one that I resisted the most, was reducing stress. I've been an entrepreneur for over 16 years, and it's pretty obvious that the chronic stress of running multiple businesses was a contributing factor to me getting Graves'. In the early days, when I first got my diagnosis, it was really easy to step away from work because I was so unwell, there was no way I could work. But 30 days in, when I first cut my T4 and T3 in half, my energy had started increasing a lot, and I actually returned to work. But what I found was that the stress and pressure of work started affecting me in a way that I didn't expect. Sleep is already disrupted when we have this condition, and that's part of the territory. But once I was back at work, I started having a string of sleepless nights. And sleepless nights are not what you need to recover from an autoimmune condition with. So at this point, it was really obvious. I had to go on leave and actually step away from the business, not just physically rest for a couple of weeks and go back to business as usual. So really, I'm treating my sabbatical and this rest period as a real part of the treatment, not just some sort of nice to have I'll do while I wait for the real treatment to get started. So those are the first three things: Bugleweed, cutting out caffeine, gluten, and sugar, and actually resting. So 30 days later from that initial blood draw, my T4 and T3 were half of what they were, and the brain fog, fatigue, nausea, and weight loss were gone. And 60 days in, my T3 levels are over 70% lower. I'm getting closer to normal. All the while, I kept trying to figure out how to see an endocrinologist sooner, and I actually did get that appointment date just a month after I was originally diagnosed. But honestly, most conventional doctors, my family doctor or that endocrinologist, are not going to be very supportive or even believe that diet, herbs, supplement, and stress reduction can really move the needle here. And that's another reason why I'm making one of those videos. There's really only 3 treatments for this condition with conventional medicine: Methimazole, hoping for remission and getting off of it, radioactive iodine, or thyroid removal. And none of them really get to the root cause, which is what caused the autoimmune condition in the first place, what caused me to get Graves'. Here's the unfortunate and kind of crazy thing though. Even though I finally got to see that endocrinologist, she couldn't put me on medication for a bunch of reasons. So even though I've seen an endocrinologist 3 times now, and she's been curious as to why my thyroid levels keep on going down, I've not been put on Methimazole yet. It's not that I'm against it. In fact, if she had given it to me on the first day, I would have gladly taken it. I in fact begged my family doctor to give it to me the very first day. But if I can't go on Methimazole, then right now, I'm hoping to do everything possible naturally to get into remission and keep this thyroid. And I'm gonna keep documenting this whole crazy thing here, the labs, all of it as it happens. And if it's useful to you, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. And honestly, if you're going through the same struggles that I am, I hope that this video was beneficial, and I wish you the best of luck.